It's a big morning because I don't like to busy myself with guesswork. I make only one 49ers mock draft per cycle, and that one mock draft is now up on the San Francisco Standard. You've heard months of conjecture, most of it baseless. I've tried to do as much research as possible to hopefully get at least a couple of the 49ers picks right in this 2025 NFL draft. So the article is in the description. We're going to go through my 2025 49ers mock draft right now. This is a massive year for the 49ers when it comes to drafting because they are trying to properly renovate their roster. So in that spirit, I revisited the 49ers 1986 draft under Bill Walsh, just an absolutely legendary haul in this article that I wrote for the Standard. Walsh traded a total of 6 times around that 1986 draft. Most of those trades were trades down to accumulate more picks in the middle rounds. The 49ers ended up with 3 third-round picks and 3 fourth-round picks that season. The draft was set up in a very similar way as it is here in 2025. It was not top-heavy, but there was a lot of meat in the middle. So Walsh wanted to capitalize on that, and people at the time, especially other NFL executives, thought that he was crazy. That was before trading down was a big thing. I think the 49ers would love to trade down this year to pick up more draft capital in the middle of the draft, but I also believe that other teams have the same idea because Bill Walsh successfully influenced the league primarily through the success of that 1986 draft. Tom Rathman was a product of that draft. Charles Haley, a Hall of Famer, was a product of that draft in the 4th round. So was John Taylor, the receiver who caught the winning touchdown pass against the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl that closed the 1988 season. So if everybody's trying to trade down, it's going to be hard for the 49ers to do that, right? It takes 2 to tango. It will take teams wanting to trade up as well. Of course, we can never rule out a trade up for the 49ers in the event that they really like one of the premier players in this NFL draft. But I think the likeliest option is that they stand pat. They've got 11 picks, the most in the league, which is important because they're trying to renovate this roster on a cost-controlled basis. I open up this mock draft piece with this line: football is a young man's sport featuring large rosters in a salary cap league. Those are inescapable realities that the 49ers face entering this critical 2025 NFL draft where they own 11 picks, the most in the league. So in order to renovate a roster in a salary capped league where you need youth, where the 49ers were the oldest team in the NFL last year, you absolutely must go through the draft. And that's what makes this NFL draft so critical for the 49ers because they are at that renovation juncture. Anyway, without further ado, make sure that you do go check out the Standard because that's where you're going to be able to read about all this, including my first pick for the 49ers, the defensive tackle, Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Now, Harmon was not one of the 49ers' top 30 visits, but if you look at history, it is from the 2nd round onward that the top 30 visits seem to be very correlated with whom the 49ers actually pick. The 1st round guys, including last year's Ricky Pearsall, 49ers don't generally hold a top 30 visit with them, maybe to avoid broadcasting who they might pick, but they collect their intelligence in other ways about their 1st round picks. At least that has been the tendency for the 49ers. San Francisco had a massive presence at Oregon's Pro Day. I mean, they had a full contingent. They had like 10 or 12 people there. John Lynch then went to dinner with Dan Lanning, Oregon's coach, and we know that John Lynch really respects Dan Lanning. I think the 49ers collected what they needed to about Oregon's players there. Of course, there are other candidates such as Josh Connerly Jr., the offensive tackle, Jeffrey Bossa, the linebacker who was actually videoed speaking to Lynch at that pro day. But I think Derek Harmon, who led all defensive tackles with 55 pressures, will be the 49ers' 1st round pick at number 11. Now, he has some work to do against the run, but I think the 49ers are actually going to double up. I've got Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo, joining the 49ers slightly later in the 3rd round at pick number 100. Alexander's a rangy run defender. So if Harmon struggles against the run, but is a good pass rusher, if they double up a defensive tackle, which is really deep in this class with somebody like Darius Alexander with their 3rd round pick, at number 100. Well, I think that the 49ers can attack both issues. But Harmon has 55 pressures under his belt for the 2024 season, 12 more than any other defensive tackle. All right, now we're rewinding back to pick number 2. As you can see here, Arante Ursary, the left tackle out of Minnesota, started playing football his sophomore year of high school. So I think there may still be some developmental meat on the bone. But the main thing is here, I think he fits the 49ers' very stringent requirements. They're very, very picky about their tackles. Listen to Tariq Ahmad talk last year about the 49ers and their high standards for offensive tackles.
Yeah, good question. I think there's not a lot of people that have the skill set to play tackle, so it reduces the pool, and also they typically go pretty early. So there's obviously a lot that we like early on in the draft, but then we are very selective of those guys. But it is something we would love to take throughout the draft if the right person was available.
We're very selective. Last year, they didn't take a tackle, but they feel that if they run into a tackle that fits their criteria, the 49ers will be more than happy to take him. I think Arante Ursary, maybe they have to trade up into the higher part of the second round from pick number 43, or maybe even into the late first round to get Ursary. But this is the year that the 49ers, I think, really want to get a tackle. So this is the player that I think really matches what they're looking for. Of course, you've got Will Campbell and Armand Membu as the two premier tackles. You could even talk about Kelvin Banks Jr. if you consider the Texas product more of a tackle at the next level than a guard. But I think especially with Membu and Campbell, that number 11 pick might not be what it takes for the 49ers. I think those two players will be off the board. Somebody like Ursary, who has the potential to develop into the player just as dominant as those guys. I mean, the measurables are awesome for Arante Ursary. You look at the 40-yard dash. I mean, it's right at 5 seconds flat for a player at 330 plus pounds. Somebody who's got the potential, but maybe hadn't quite fully developed because he was a later starter to football, so therefore a later bloomer. I think that could be the player that fits the 49ers draft capital situation and also fits their very selective desires at the tackle position. Following Ursary, we move to Alec Eilmanor. This is Alec Eilmanor with John Lynch at Stanford's Pro Day. You could see Eilmanor did not participate there because he had already shown enough with his 4.4 40 at the NFL Combine. Obviously, his 294-yard performance against Travis Hunter in Colorado a couple years ago. That's Travis Hunter is going to go in the first round of this draft. I think Alec, big, strong receiver who loves to block. He's going to fit right in at pick number 75 for the 49ers. Now, another potential option for San Francisco would be Kyle Williams, the wide receiver out of Washington State. But I think that 49ers fans might cringe when they hear that name. Who knows? Maybe Kyle Shanahan loves Kyle Williams because of Williams' separation ability. Maybe John Lynch loves Alec Eilmanor because of the Stanford connection. Again, you could see Lynch talking to Eilmanor there. Maybe it's a Lynch versus Shanahan battle for which receiver to take in the third round. But I'm going to project Alec Eilmanor to the 49ers at pick number 75. Obviously, we go to Darius Alexander then out of Toledo. Now moving on to the fourth round where the 49ers have a pair of picks. Caleb Rogers is an offensive lineman from Texas Tech who is extremely strong, probably a guard at the next level, played tackle in college, but Rogers, he could squat 600 pounds. He could power clean 406 pounds. I mean, this guy's an anchor, and the 49ers should be interested in linemen with an anchor, especially versatile linemen with an anchor. This would mark the second lineman I'm picking in the first 113 picks. Arante Ursary out of Minnesota, and then Caleb Rogers in a year that the 49ers lost Aaron Banks to free agency. I think a fourth-round pick on a lineman who started at 4 different positions makes a whole lot of sense. Then we move on to this guy, Kane Medrano, linebacker out of UCLA. I know that a lot of people are talking about Chris Pooh Paul, the linebacker out of Ole Miss by way of Arkansas. So Paul went to the school of Dre Greenlaw, and then he went to the school of Patrick Willis. He's a similar linebacker to Kane Medrano, really fast guy. But I think that Medrano's even faster. 1.52 10-yard split is insane. His 4.46 40 and that 10-yard split are the fastest of any linebacker in this NFL draft class. He might miss a lot of tackles, but I think the 49ers are confident they can develop linebackers, and they should be. They have a great track record of developing linebackers, especially the speedy ones who can fit into their system. Would I be shocked by Jeffrey Boss out of Oregon? No, but he's expected to go earlier in the draft. I think that Medrano might be there for the 49ers in the 4th round of this NFL draft. Moving on, Elijah Roberts, defensive end. Now, Elijah, this is a 285-pound edge rusher, so unconventionally big, but that could make him effective against the run for the 49ers, which they need. They need edge setters, and also they need value at the edge rusher position. I think Elijah Roberts, 18 sacks, 25 tackles for loss over his past 2 seasons at SMU in the 5th round would mark excellent value for the 49ers, especially since with that 285-pound size, unconventional, I think they could really have a good run defender. Speaking of bigger size, well, my 5th round pick at number 160, because the 49ers have a pair of 5th round picks, is Jalen Conyers. Take a look at the spider chart for Jalen Conyers, the tight end, who started at ASU and then finished his college career at Texas Tech. He played some of his college career at 270 pounds, which is huge for a tight end. He was 260 when he measured out at the NFL Combine. But even at that 260-pound weight, and for reference, George Kittle is somewhere in the 240s, probably the upper 240s. So Conyers is significantly heavier. Even at that weight, he's got an awesome 3-cone drill, 85th percentile, 81st percentile broad jump, 77th percentile vertical jump, above average 40-yard dash, even better 10-yard split. I mean, everything here is above average except for the height. But even the wingspan and the arm length are above average for Jalen Conyers. This is about as good of athletic value as you'll find for a tight end in the 5th or the 6th round. I think he's got 49ers written all over him. And I think that, when you can find that holy grail combination, which is quick enough to get open and big enough to block, which is what we see here from Jalen Conyers, you're very happy if you are the 49ers. Moving on. Yes, I have San Francisco picking a quarterback. This is in the 7th round, another 7th round QB. This is Max Brosmer. Now, while watching Arante Ursary in Minnesota, I'm sure the 49ers saw plenty of Max Brosmer, who transferred to Minnesota and delivered a good year, set a school record for completions. If Kyle Shanahan believes that Max Brosmer can play the position, well, then he's going to be very interested in him. That was the justification for Brock Purdy back in 2022. He knows how to play the position. That's what's really important for the 49ers. It's not athletic metrics. It's the ability to play the position. Bonus, Brock Purdy had an awesome 10-yard split. And also bonus knowledge here, because we have 2 Minnesota prospects going to the 49ers in this mock draft. Kyle Shanahan was actually born in Minneapolis when his dad, Mike Shanahan, was an assistant coach for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. It was a very short-lived stay in Minneapolis because then Mike Shanahan was hired away and the Shanahan family moved. But the trivia there for you is that Kyle Shanahan was indeed born in Minnesota, which is the school that would, in the future, host Max Brosmer and Arante Ursary, who are both in my 49ers mock draft. 2 more picks. 7th rounder, Kobe Bryant, feisty cornerback. He's not overly big. I think he's going to have to add some muscle to his 180-pound frame. He's a little bit over 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, but this is the type of guy who just has a nose for the ball. 13 career interceptions at Kansas, took a 30 visit with the 49ers. They love their dogs at the cornerback position. I think that Kobe Bryant is one of them. Finally, the 7th round pick to round things out for the 49ers is Corey Kiner. He's just 5'9", running back out of Cincinnati. About a 4.5, 740. Nothing impressive athletically, size-wise for Corey Kiner, but he knows how to run. He forced 84 missed tackles in 2024. So he knows how to break tackles. And at the fundamental level, that's what football is all about. It's about tackling and the ability to break those tackles. And they need to spruce up the running back room. I think a 7th round pick at running back would make people a whole lot happier than a 3rd round pick at running back. So what you do in the 7th round is you look for that type of tackle breaking value. So that is my one and only mock draft. I don't waste your guys' time with mock draft 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, 8.0, whatever number you want to assign to it. That's all guesswork. The draft is famously unpredictable. We should just embrace it for what it is. So we've been talking about players, we've been talking about possibilities, and now given the intel that we have, given the research that we've done, we can present to you a proper mock draft, something that's not just out there for clickbait. So go ahead and check out the proper mock draft. You could subscribe to this channel, but also sign up for the San Francisco Standard. Link to the mock draft is in the description. This has been your 49ers Alarm Clock Update. Everybody have a good day. We'll talk to you a little bit later.